What up, Cards and Cannabis, Season 3, Episode 9. Let's get it on. Shout outs to the sponsors, AvaGrace1.com. Perfect Blast, check them out. XS, they got it, it rocks. Man, what a week. We got some good bud, it's been holding us down. Leafly.com's got a little review on this one. And, probably something that most people have probably tasted. I mean, it's not. We're working over here with Gelato 47. You know, I'm looking over here. That's lemon cherry gelato. Let's see. Gelato. We got 41, 45, 47, 45, 44. Man, there's just a lot of gelato strains. Looks like it's a hybrid. It's got CBG of 1%, big old buds, THC at 21%, and these buds, they look good. It's dense, you know, but you look up on the inside, you can see it's got good color all the way through, right? They say it's a hybrid. It's a little bit more, in my mind, toward an indica, but it is what it is. It's been calming things down. It's been a crazy week for us 80s babies. We lost Malcolm Jamal Warner. God bless you and your family, sir. You entertained me growing up. Cosby's, know what I mean? It was a staple show that everybody watched back in the day. It was, back then, he didn't have all this options. 3, 6, and 10. 17, 57. You know, that was what it was. And maybe some 12 in there sometimes. A little public broadcast, you know. But, yeah, man, definitely somebody that definitely was in most of our memories growing up. And then we lost not one, we lost two goats. Two goats. And one, kind of anticipated that this was going to be sooner than later, but that's the legendary Ozzy Osbourne. And Ozzy had been showing some real signs of age just on the last few times I'd seen him, you know, whether it was on TMZ or something of that nature. And yeah, he went home. And you know, when it comes down to like some of the majors, you know, Faith Family Finance, who's on this team, who's on that team type deal, people get riled up, stirred up, you know, and it's like, he's the enemy. No, he's the enemy. You know what I mean? And it's like they can never see eye to eye. Those individuals can never meet because it'll end up in conflict. And, you know, Ozzy, if you had to ask me where he stood on maybe those 3 F's that I mentioned, like, I would have to say he was probably on the other side of the ball. I heard a podcast recently, and I don't even know if this was put out. It was put out recently, as in, I don't know if it was done when he passed away. What's this boy's name? I gotta tell you the kid's name because you can go check it out. Or if it was really close or when it was. But this guy obviously met Ozzy before he passed. Dylan Novak. Go check that out. He's got an interesting story. All right. But needless to say, after watching the Osbournes, the show, it was evident that Ozzy is a real person. You know, he's a good guy. And you tend to like him even more because can't deny, like, I mean, I grew up as a teenager in the 90s, so, like, I didn't really get into Iron Maiden or Black Sabbath or those guys, but you would hear certain songs, you know, those 1 or 2 songs where it was like, you know, I am Iron Man, dun, 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 dun. Everybody knew that. You didn't have to be, you know, a Black Sabbath fan, but you knew that song. That's what it was. And my first album of Ozzy's that really, and it's unfortunate I don't have his autograph. I'm not even gonna lie. So I have nothing to show, but he deserves a shout out because Cards and Cannabis likes to shine the light on goats. These are people that do extraordinary things and achieve extraordinary accomplishments that the rest of us, maybe we tried and didn't make it, and these guys finished, and that's commendable. They finished the journey. They got there. They did that. And in this case scenario, at least with the Ozman, it's like he entertained a lot of people. Who knows the number, but it's a lot. And it's in the millions. And it's like, to have something that you created that has the ability to withstand time, because people are going to be listening to his music long after this last week. And I hope that Dylan Novak was leaning towards the right, because I'm going to wrap up with this, with the thought I was leading into, because it ties into the next individual too. But Osmosis was the first album that came out for me, and there's a lot of great tracks on there, a lot of ones that I really love, and that got me going back, and it was like, man, this guy's a true, genuine talent. And you hear the story about Randy Rhoads and the trauma that caused for Ozzy. There's never an excuse for self-medicating, but you never know what PTSD, how it affects people. It's not just, it's not just exclusive to our servicemen and women. There's people that go through traumatic events, and watching your best friend and your bassist, who was considered arguably since Jimi Hendrix the best guitar player, if not ever, maybe Eddie Van Halen, I don't know, I'm not an expert, but these are guys, that Carlos Santana, these guys, Slash, these are guys that picked up Kurt Hammett, these are guys that pick up the guitar and do things that, my boy Tim Bob from Raging, these are guys that pick up that piece of equipment and do things that no one else could do. They immortalized. They created. People maybe have duplicated posts, but no one did it before. They're just genuine goats. So Ozzy, he had a lot of dark side demons that he dealt with, and I just hope he saw the light. And then obviously the one that hits home for me, because I did grow up with this guy from the same time that Malcolm Jamal Warner, but this extended all the way up until the very last day, and that's Hulkamania. What you gonna do, brother? All the Hulkamaniacs, take your vitamins and say your prayers. When it comes crashing down and it hurts inside. Dun, 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 dun. One of the greatest walkouts ever. Hands down, the GOAT. From the WWF to the WWE to the WCW and back. It's like, you're talking about, there's certain characters, Ozzy being one of them, and Hulk Hogan being another. They lasted the test of time. Hulk is a very controversial individual as well. And needless to say, he, as much as he was in the limelight, he was in the dark light too. And no one can, if you were in the 80s, no one, I don't care what age, how old you were, you went to Blockbuster, if you were like me and rented WrestleMania 1, 2, and 3 because pay-per-view wasn't even an option. Don't let anybody tell you they rented WrestleMania 1. It wasn't an option. It was 1981. There's no pay-per-view. You had Prism. Y'all don't even know what Prism is. Yo, y'all don't even know. We had a box, like this big box. Maybe like this big box. And it had like 20 buttons. And they were numbered 1 to 20. That was your only options, bro. You push a button. Sing had a wire that went to the television. That was the first remote control. It wasn't too remote. You had a radius. It was like the phone was plugged into the wall. You were stuck on a radius. There was no mobility. And I'm going to light this one up for Malcolm Jamal Warner, Ozzy Osbourne, and Hulkamania. May you rest in peace. Salute. So we got to WrestleMania 4 and 5, and they were local. They were right here in Atlantic City. I went back and watched all Hulk's most important bouts to me. Need an ashtray. Definitely gonna need that. Don't want to get yelled at. You know what I'm saying? We still gotta answer to people around here. It's because you think you got it in your house, got a man cave. It can get infiltrated real quick. So we watched, and now it's all accessible on YouTube, but we watched the first couple WrestleManias. You get that legendary walkout in Madison Square Garden. You get the to WrestleMania 3, and it's probably his most significant match of his career. Because everybody, you can get these stories. I don't want to have to recreate it, but I like just brushing over it. But Andre the Giant was nothing to be played with. And I got friends from when I played ball back in the day that are that big, and you don't play with them either. You just don't. It's like at a certain point you stop poking the bear because he'll pile drive you effortlessly into the ground. And when you see Hulk Hogan, do you have any idea what 6'7", 350 pounds looks like? You probably don't. Andre the Giant was 7 feet tall, and it's estimated he was close to 500 pounds. If you don't know how big the Hulk is, listen, when XS sent me down to Orlando to a Magic game one time and got us courtside seats, I was standing 3 rows up behind the players' bench, eye to eye with Patrick Ewing. Patrick at this point in time is retired and probably has lost a couple inches because you do shrink. I was 3 rows up, eye to eye. I'm 6 feet. This man is 7 feet. There's a big difference. That 1 foot means a lot. It's just impressive. And then Hulk slamming the person that had never been slammed. And yes, Hulk tells the story. And it makes it even more special when he hears that Andre did the right thing. He passed it on to the Hulk. And I know Hulk's accused of not doing that in certain circumstances. But who knows? 55 guys may have wanted that mantle passed on to them from Andre. Andre chose the Hulk. And he said, slam me. And he gave Hulk that one little push because his back was bad. You watch the fight, it's not an impressive fight. It wasn't. And that's why people say, oh, that wasn't his best fight. You're right, it probably wasn't. But it was the most monumental because it meant now that the world belonged to the Hulk. And then we watched the Macho Man. And we watched the Ultimate Warrior fights. And we went back and watched the Iron Sheik fight. You know, and we watched the tag team fight with Mr. T. You know? Unbelievable. And that brought us into a whole new decade and whole new era. And competitors came in. And then Hulk went to the competitors. And then he did the bad guy thing over there. And then he came back from the competitors. You know, and he ended up going out the good guy. And you know what? Hulk did pass the mantle because The Rock then took it on. And they say in wrestling that there's 2 guys that have the greatest careers, and honestly, they say the biggest was Steve Austin. And I'm not going to deny that. Austin 316 was a sweep, man. And that was wildfire. That went everywhere. But Hulk gave it to The Rock at WrestleMania. And The Rock's legacy obviously still goes on probably to this day. I don't really partake much into that right now, so I can't tell you who's relevant, who's not. But Rock is relevant he's a GOAT. He's transcended. He's at the Mount Rushmore for the things that he's done. He's accomplished much. Then you got Hulk going in the movies. That was the stepping stone for guys in that industry to get mainstream. You know, he was a lot to a lot of people. But if you listen and follow to the Hulk, and I tie this in with this guy over here, I said his name earlier, I forget it already. I tied into what he said if you watch that interview where he had multiple meetings and sit downs privately with Ozzy and his family, personally, and talked about what faith through Christ is. And I don't know. You listen to that man's story. Let him tell the story. You never know. It says the word is powerful and sharper than a two-edged sword. It could be sitting in your house and somehow get into you up here. And that's all it takes to go from here to here. Right? Coming down. So Hulk at the end was a staunch advocate to make sure and let everybody know that he had given his life to Christ, in the sense that he is what is referred to as a born-again Christian. I don't see how that's a negative. You don't have to believe. But if you think about what Christ represented, which was love, right? They said, Christ, what's the first commandment? He said, love the Father. He said, what's the second commandment? Love your neighbor as yourself. If everybody subscribed to that, Jesus said it. All right, you don't want to hear from him? Bob Marley said it. Rodney King even said it. Can't we all just get along? Yo, that guy's statement is underrated. He said the most powerful statement that everybody turned into a joke. If he had the internet back then, they would have made a meme. They thought it was comical. That's real rap, bro. That's how things kind of balance out. Everybody just chills out. You don't gotta flip people the bird and this and that. It's negatory. You know? And Hulk went out on top. This is why I saved that thought I said before to the end. This is why it's important, because I never got a chance to meet any of these people. But with that profession of faith, I personally believe one day I'll get a chance to meet both of them and spend significant amount of time catching up. See, I think sometimes we get caught up because the people that we see that are out there, we don't want to meet them because they're a celebrity. We want to meet them because we actually relate with these cats. We probably would be friends. You know what I mean? And we take a dice roll. You go somewhere, you hear your favorite celebrity's going to be there, and it's a dice roll. You're either going to leave happy or disappointed. You know? And I believe these are the type of people, like, you want to get to know them. You know, they're cool people. They're cool cats. Our time here is limited. One day it'll be us. And, you know, every dog's got his day. You know? It's an insurance policy. Think about it. And I believe it to be true. So, Hulk did have negatories. Ozzy did have negatories. But you know what was cool this week? On the internet, the positives were louder than the negatives. And I'm going to smoke to that. Man. In our loss as a society, we gained because for a brief moment in time, the larger, broader population decided to spend its time focusing on the good versus the bad. That's good. A mic drop with that. You know what? I think I will. To the next episode. Peace.